Imagine a 10-year journey through space, but it feels like an instant, and you don't age. You signed up for a new life. For around 27 months, you're going to serve on one of the frontier colonies in a brand new star system. In this case, SO3, the fledgling remote icy colony, home to just a couple hundred specialists. In this age of discovery, out on the frontier, you've left your home behind, but you'll be well compensated, paid a salary where you'll be set for life. That's what keeps you going through long workdays and lonely nights. A land with towering mountains and gray rocky plains, sheets of icy, frozen lakes and beautiful glaciers. Serene and deep blue, from above it looks peaceful, but dangers lurk deep in the dark caves and crevices. Almost no one has seen them. Monsters made of metal that creep around in the dark. Keep your eyes peeled. This is Rocky Frontier. And I can hardly believe it, but it's been 4 years since I came up with this novel. Back then I wouldn't have called myself a writer. Now it's my biggest passion. I think a formal education is useful for writing, but more as a supplement. Writing comes from life experience. Life experience fuels your imagination. If you only wrote based on other books you've read, it wouldn't feel real, it would feel cliche. That's one of my hot takes. I knew I wanted to write a book, especially, in 2020. But I kept coming up with half-baked ideas, an interstellar clone at one point. I had to dig deeper and come up with something really original. It was around that time I first saw the movie Taxi Driver, which I found to be kind of a hypnotic film. That inspired much of the grittiness that I added to the story that made it feel more like my own. 2001 was also a big inspiration, for the whole long space journey thing. I wanted to write a space story where space travel wasn't this inconsequential thing, like taking a flight. I wanted to reflect the reality that the universe is unfathomably huge. Even just the closest star system to Earth is 4 light years away. 4 light years, let that sink in. Light can travel from the sun to the Earth in 8 minutes, and yet it would take 4 years for light moving at that speed to reach the closest planet. That's ridiculous. In the book, Rocky Frontier, they travel 7 light years to get to SO3, and it takes a decade to do it. I spent 3 months brainstorming and outlining, but it was an image that finally got me started. A scene I pictured with 3 astronaut workers doing rock climbing in this icy cave in order to harvest materials. I just thought it'd be a really cool scene that's a little sci-fi, but shows the everyday work culture of the colony that I envisioned. That scene became the first chapter of Rocky Frontier. From there, I just consistently wrote almost every day. I'm not a fast writer by any means, you see, but I just keep going. That's how I get output. Think about it this way. If you only average, let's say, a page and a half per day, but you keep that up every single week, how long does it take you to write a 300-page novel? Well, if you do the math, that's 7 months, and that's exactly how long it took me. Rain or shine, whether I was feeling good or came down with a cold or anything like that, it didn't stop me, it didn't matter. And I didn't stop after that. I've kept writing consistently on different projects throughout all of college. I have a lot of work to share. If you want writing advice, I can discuss that on other videos, but this is more about getting an idea started. I found that picturing a scene, sometimes drawing it out or attaching music to it, is the best way to get started. You have to set a mood, because writing projects are all about emotions. I don't care how technical your sci-fi world or magic system is, if the story isn't populated with characters who feel grounded, real emotions, it won't be much of a story. Outline and plan your story, but keep that outline as a living document. Go back and update it when you have new ideas, and let your story evolve and change as you write it. That's how you keep things fresh and you keep yourself motivated. Never commit too hard to an exact chain of events in your novel, or you'll get so bored of it, trust me. Now let's get back to Rocky Frontier. In a solar system all to themselves, the SO3 system, also known as the Gamma system, colonists operate massive machines that extend their reach to miles across the surface of this icy planet, even to other nearby planets when needs be. The transport vessels only arrive about twice a calendar year, and and are limited in the supplies they carry. So the colony needs to be self-sufficient in many regards. That's where the survival element comes in. Some lucky colonists get taken home, having served their time, hopefully without any serious injuries. That's no guarantee. If they've made it through 27 months at least, then the next transport vessel will take them home. And the new arrivals, they're treated well for a while, and then given some of the unwanted jobs. After just a little while of getting acclimated, they're thrown into the fire. Night shift if they're security, field medics are sent out for work disasters or occasionally other more sinister events the colony would rather not advertise. They try to keep a low profile on these things because there really isn't a strong sense of borders out there. The planet is too vast and too wild to be controlled. If something comes at you, the real unsettling truth, there really isn't that much protection other than the security workers who hang around in various shifts and accompany some of the specialists. But it truly is the frontier. There is no stable, solid security, and that's just a fact of life there. Jobs and gigs change quickly on this colony. If you keep your head down and do the work, you'll be in a better position before you know it. Larry Atkins is a wanderer. He gets lost in thought at times, and is just a bit distant from everybody else. He's one of the most talented security workers the colony has ever seen, capable of laser-sharp focus when he needs to, with well above average human senses, but he's got a chip on his shoulder. For a moment, if one just looked straight up at the night sky, the deep darkness filled with stars, the planet didn't feel so alien. The nighttime sky, window into the rest of the stars above, was universal. Then to look back down at the gray, rocky wasteland of a surface, and nothing for miles out but ominous mountains, like a punch in the gut. Rocky Frontier, Chapter 3. The cover was something that I thought about for a long time. When I decided to self-publish this book, I wanted to make sure the cover represented the story well. In fact, so well that it had to be perfect. I remember seeing covers of great books I read as a kid, particularly Ranger's Apprentice. You guys, I'm sure many of you are aware of that one. Those book covers were incredibly special because of the way they captured my imagination by looking so real. It's funny because looking back now, Ranger's Apprentice is obviously just another world filled with fancy creatures and tropes and characters and all that stuff. But at the time, it felt so real compared to anything else I'd seen before. Like some historical text or something, Real shadowy figures of a kingdom who could sneak around and spy for the army. It felt so real, and I attribute that feeling mainly to the book cover. I look at some of the more modern covers I see, particularly on young adult books, which my book is not, but I'm like, what are these new trends? I am disappointed with these new trends. I see oversaturated colors, vague, bright images with no real focus, or just these anime-looking covers, which, no hate, but, well, I am a hater. There's a particular style that I just like, and it resonates with me. The book cover, the wrong book cover on a book is just going to ruin your perception going into it. It's so important. The 2000s was a time when we were getting certain media that was grittier and darker, like, for example, Assassin's Creed. Right, where again, in hindsight, very clearly fictional, but at the time it felt so damn real. Like a secret Templar order group trying to shape the world, or the assassins trying to stop them. These things just felt, if you saw the trailer when the first game came out, it's just incredible. Again, now it all feels tropey and intentional, especially they come out with so many games, but not back then. Back then it really affected me. So my advice for covers, if you're self-publishing like me, take your time and sketch it out for your artist and write a lengthy description of it. My sketching was abysmal, but you know what? It was enough to convey what I was going for when combined with a well-thought-out written description. And I also emphasized a painted look from the cover, like an engraving or a painting. And I couldn't be more happy with the results, honestly. And the sequels, I won't share those covers just yet, but they have great covers too. Seeing that final cover was one of the most satisfying parts of this entire process for me, and remains one of my favorite parts about creating this book. Writer's block. Let's talk about it briefly, because that's honestly one of the biggest hindrances. And you start something and then you just don't know how to finish it. How did I avoid writer's block when writing this novel? how did I write consistently the same amount every week for 7 months, right? It's not just a coincidence. Well, there's a lot of advice I could give, more than just for this one video, but let me give you a really good tip right now. Number one tip that I would give you for productivity: a lot of people say silence your inner critic, and this is true. But if you're writing something that's not well fleshed out, not only are you going to feel lost and confused, but you're also going to feel like you're making some hot garbage, like for real. The way to avoid that is anytime I'm having trouble writing, I recognize it means one of two things: do more research or decide more firmly what I want out of a scene. I'm one of those people that believes that writer's block doesn't really exist. There's something missing there when it's happening. Like, rather, it doesn't just spontaneously happen, you know? To that first point, about research, I keep a document, chapter by chapter citations and dozens of articles. This document, call it research links, has everything that I want. Google images, I tend to pick those out, and videos, going down scene by scene relating to what I'm writing about. If I look at this document, I can picture and know the facts about the scenes that I'm trying to write. That way I not only hopefully get the science right for the sci-fi elements, but more importantly, I just get a clear picture of what I'm writing. If I've never been in space before, for example, how am I going to know what that feels like? I should refresh myself by watching some space content and doing some reading about the finer details, right? About real astronauts from NASA on the International Space Station. You know, what do they say about it? There's so much content out there. If something really hasn't been thought up before, like, you know, something just hasn't, you can't find it, make it up based on some rational assumptions related to a similar thing. But most things you'll find on the massive internet, you can find some related topic to this fictional idea that you've come up with, and that will help you picture what to write. And as for the second point, deciding more firmly what I want out of the scenes. If you have some dialogue you're struggling to write, or you can't commit to certain actions of the scene, just make a judgment call. What is this scene about? What is the point of it? Writing is like creating a film, but with infinite budget, and you're the director, producer, casting director, all of that in one. You need to make executive decisions about what's important for the novel and which parts you can gloss over or skip. If you're having trouble filling out a character's day, for instance, let's say your scene is getting boring, just time skip. Time skipping is fine. It allows the story to keep moving without getting bogged down in the mundane details. Do take the time to show the beauty of your world, I'd say, through descriptions. Even sometimes describe characters doing mundane things, but only when you want to. Don't ever feel like you have to. If I'm writing a scene and I feel like I'm forced to write this, I just decide to skip to the part where it gets good. Often less is more, and you can get a clear dynamic description of a location in just a few sentences, like I did at the beginning of this video. Writing is like working out. When you haven't done it for a while, it can feel daunting and hard, but if you keep up regular weekly or bi-weekly or daily habits, it actually gets much easier to stay consistent. You don't need to overexert yourself or pressure yourself to finish the novel too soon. You have plenty of time. Take months, take over a year if you have to, take however long. But never sit down to write and walk away from the page with nothing. If you sit down to write, then write. Even if it's only 100 words, that's something I've literally never compromised on, unless the moment I sat down, like literally the instant I sat down, something came up. But other than that, I've never compromised that in this entire writing process. And even then, I find myself distracted if I have to go do something else, and then I'm drawn back to the page until I write it. I can't, it's like a closed loop in my brain. I can't take myself away from the task. I hate leaving ideas unresolved. My goal is to get this novel I've written, called Rocky Frontier, into as many hands as possible so people can read and see what I've worked so hard on. I really put my all into not just the setting and tone of the story, but the characters as well, and I wanted it to be authentic. For a while I kept it to myself on my laptop, but I really do think it's cool and good enough to at least be worth people's attention. I'm going to continue talking about Rocky Frontier and developing the ESO lore, which right now is even still in its infancy. The extrasolar settlement operation. It has a lot to offer. I mean, Rocky Frontier covers one of the 3 ESO colonies I've outlined. The lore so far is available at my website, jadenfarquhar.com, at least a portion of it. I have other stories to talk about. This is going to be a writing channel in general. At this point, I have a lot to say on that matter. Maybe some narrations. I've been told some people they want narrations. That would be pretty cool. So writing and SO lore. Yeah, that'll do for now. I've had some substantial successes selling the book in person at events, conventions, local book fair type of stuff. But online is a new landscape for me, that's for sure. It's a bit scary to put your work out there to the whole internet where literally anyone can see it. But hey, I mean, I put this work to write it, I put in this work to get it done. So that's what I'm going to do. The online promotion, we're just getting started. 27 months on a deep space colony out on the rocky frontier at the dawn of a new age of discovery. Thank you for watching.